Going to give it about 10 seconds.
Okay.
3, 2. Hello, and welcome back to another TAC tutorial. Today we'll be doing the follow-up interview that we discussed in our allocations video. As you can see, we're on the main allocations page, and today I'm joined by Remy Scott, a fellow member of the user services team.
Hello, everyone.
So down here, as discussed in the allocation video, we have apply on TextRaz. Tab open for that. And in today's example, we'll be using the University of Texas System Institution submission, just like in the video. And we'll have Remy go over some of the things that our allocation reviewers are looking for. So as
Indeed.
I click here, and it's very simple. Request title, which will be essentially what you're looking for your project. And then we have a public abstract. Remy, what are folks looking for here?
So, public abstract, you want something that's going to briefly explain the goal of your research or project. You don't have to go too in depth here. That's usually saved for some other documents later in the application process. But yeah, public abstract is, I kind of like to call it the elevator pitch, so to speak. What's something you could summate your research or your project up in, a paragraph's length.
Okay, that sums that up pretty well. And for keywords, should they be using hashtags or just, keywords in general?
Just keywords in general. This is done for searching purposes, kind of in the back end and up on an NSF level. Like I always say with these allocations, and I'll probably repeat myself during this interview, but the more information you can provide here, the better. Reviewers are looking for honestly as much information as possible with most of these type of allocation requests. I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, you know, if you can fill out every box on this thing, that's amazing.
Right. And I believe this is not a required field, but it is suggested field of science.
Correct. Now, there are many, many, many obviously different disciplines and fields of science, and often we have new disciplines, coming along at a pretty good clip. This is just, again, mostly for kind of organizational and reporting processes. We do like to see this information, though. It just kind of gives us an idea and, our stakeholders an idea of what kind of fields of science are being studied on these marvelous resources.
Cool. Yeah, and it looks like we have quite an extensive list here.
It really is. I mean, it is, and there's new ones added quite often, like I said.
Excellent. We see this related personnel. Now, whoever opens the allocation is going to be the principal investigator,
True,
and there
true.
can only be one principal investigator.
Exactly. There can only be one. Now, that being said, principal investigators, aka PIs, can add. Most commonly, we'll see an allocation manager, also kind of known as a delegate. Basically, these allocation managers have almost the same amount of permission that the PI does, as far as requesting, supplements and extensions to allocations, as well as inviting and adding members to the project and allocation. They basically can do anything the PI can do except become the PI, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So they can renew or they can submit an allocation renewal
Yep.
or request more hours. They have all the same authority,
Yep.
except,
Exactly. They can basically manage the project on behalf of the PI.
okay.
So
So what's the difference between an allocation manager and a co-PI?
So different projects, different programs, there can be co-PIs. At TAC specifically, we don't really honor that delegation when the project and allocation information syncs up and gets provisioned on TAC resources. We really try to we want one PI and then an allocation manager. I mean, co-PIs are allowed. Sometimes different supporting grants require those kinds of things. We at TAC specifically do not, and we don't really like honor it on the allocation or the project. But for NSF reporting purposes and grant reporting purposes, definitely, if you have a co-PI on the project, please by all means add them here, but not necessary.
Fantastic. And I mean, users are the other people who will be on the allocation.
Right, right. There'll be a member who can use that resource or resources that are attached to that project. And there are different methods to add users. I I find a different workflow, which I'm sure you will cover, to invite users to projects. I mean, it can be done here, but again, not necessary. Kind of like the co-PI, not really necessary to list the users here quite yet. But definitely, PI and allocation manager are the two that we see PIs using and filling in here for sure.
Right, that's going to be the mandatory. And then users you can always add later on down the line.
And you probably will, yeah, as a
Mhm.
PI. I mean, so definitely.
For this other collaborators, is that like other groups, other universities?
Sure, sure. I think again, not mandatory information. Uh, just, sometimes there are certain examples of opportunities that we actually require a community effort on. So this would be a place to add in information like that. Like for example, we do well, we have been doing LSCP, which is a community focused. It requires, multiple institutions or it needs to serve different communities. And that would be required in that kind of situation. But again, that's probably more rare than prolific we see in applications. But again, like I said, if you have this information, please by all means add it.
Yeah, the more information, the better.
Really, truly.
Which does lead us into this supporting grants section. And I get a lot of questions about this when it comes to allocations. This is
Yeah.
not necessary at all, is it?
Again, I know I've used this several times. It just depends. Now, for this particular opportunity that we're looking at, the University of the UT Systems opportunity, the University of Texas Systems Institution opportunity. This one doesn't necessarily require a supporting grant, but there will be opportunities that do because in certain instances, the stakeholders want assurances, and a lot of times that is done through showing that you have a supporting grant from somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, and the more information, the better.
Again, yeah, if you've got this information, now again, it's not required on this one, but it is required on some opportunities.
Ah, I see. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's good
yeah.
to know.
Not on this particular one, but yeah, it will be. It just again, it depends on the opportunity type, but uh, again, with this, the required fields are clearly marked. So,
Hmm.
um,
Right. Those required fields can be seen with your standard red asterisk next
right,
to
yeah,
them.
the little red asterisk, indeed, indeed.
And something else not required but heavily encouraged is selecting what type of resource you're looking for, whether you're looking for GPUs, classic CPU,
Right.
different Intel architectures.
Yeah, yep. And I mean, you can, there definitely are some guidelines, which I know you discussed in the last video series of this series, as far as kind of some guardrails as far and some best practices as far as, what kind of time to ask for. Obviously, if you've never run on TAC resources and you ask for a whole heck of a lot of time, that number is probably going to get modified or even rejected, right? So you definitely want to do your research, and I feel like a lot of PIs and even allocation managers kind of have an idea coming into this process beforehand, but and again, you might not always get what you ask for, but you're more than welcome as a PI or allocation manager to ask for, you know, any resource listed here. And again, different opportunities will have different resources available. Now, this being UT System Institution one, we actually see, I think, almost all of our main TAC resources here. But again, different opportunities are going to have different views and different resources available.
Yeah, yeah, and I also want to take this opportunity to point out two of these selections, which is our Corral storage system and our Corral protected storage system. This is something you need to decide before you make this allocation. It can be added on later, can't it?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's one of the reasons that actually you see it here, and is because it can be added later and even requested. I mean, again, remember, the non-protected corral, we do offer smaller allocations on corral at no cost to you, which all that information is in the corral tac user guide as well too, like the pricing and increments and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, if you're going to use more than a terabyte of storage space, we highly recommend getting a Corral allocation as well.
Right, right. And again, if you're with, I know this is a instance where we're in the University of Texas System Institution Opportunity. So that's something to think about it if you are affiliated with UT. Again, you can always reach out, do a ticket if you got any questions and that kind of stuff. We'll get back to you.
All right, allocation end date.
Yep.
What
So
would you say is too much?
that's obviously 10 years or something. We kind of see systems live on an average for what, 5 years maybe. A lot of times this allocation end date kind of gets tied to their funding sources. Generally speaking, it's a year allocation. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to every rule. Educational allocations won't quite be as long. They'll cover a semester or whatever. A training allocation may only cover a couple of weeks, that kind of thing. Generally speaking, though, these are done in 1 year increments, but again, it just depends on the nature of the project, allocation request. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Again, this isn't mandatory. Like I said, standards a year. It's probably what most projects and allocations are likely to get. Just again, there's exceptions to every rule. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, about a standard year for
Yeah.
anybody creating a new allocation. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll assign that too during the review process. So, but again, if you need something that's different than a year, you'll likely know and can indicate it here.
And we're on to our final section.
Yeah.
This is required documents main document.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And this is probably one we get the most questions on too, is what does this need to be? Fortunately, we do have some good examples of this on the TAC allocations website. It's just kind of it's just midway down the page. You just kind of have to look for it, but it is there. I believe I always search for
Ah, here we go.
read this example. There we go. Yep, and that kind of gives you a good idea. Now, the length of your main document and the information provided within are going to depend on the kind of allocation you're requesting. Obviously, a startup allocation with a couple of 100 hours, isn't really going to require the amount of information because you're just not going to have it probably for a small, startup allocation of a couple 100 hours versus, you know, tens of thousands of hours or SUs on a system. So this main document, it's going to depend on what you're asking for, but again, the more information you can put in that main document, probably the better your chances of getting a higher marks on your review.
And I do see here it is a 4-page limit. I assume that's a 4-page maximum, right?
It is a 4-page maximum. Usually you don't need any more than that. Generally speaking, we want to see it's almost like the abstract would be kind of the elevator pitch, and then this is more your proposal, right? This is
Okay.
more, you're gonna talk about the field of science and perhaps what kind of software you're going to be using or developing, the kind of the goals of your research project and why you're asking for this allocation, what you hope to accomplish with the time. And then another thing the reviewers really like to see are predictions on the why you're asking for the amount of time you're asking for. So some of the better proposals we see, or let me put it this way, the proposals that will get higher marks in the end will have that kind of information. They will have, you know, estimates of why you're asking for, you know, let's just say 10,000 hours on Lone Star 6. If you have a breakdown of why, you know, so many hours running this software on this many nodes kind of thing, you know, like just some math in there is very helpful. I think you know, again, the more information, I believe the more information that the PIs and allocation managers submit, it relays a sense of earnestness, and I think that can play a key factor in the marks that these submissions will get in the end. So
All right.
again,
Well,
yeah, that example, I point a lot of people to that example on the allocations page. It's yeah, it's kind of got everything in it that you would want to see, a reviewer would want to see. Uh, you know, from a project description, again, this one has like a justification. That's the word I was searching for earlier on why you're asking for as much as, you know, you're asking for. Those things really are key factors.
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is something users can read. Everything's listed out here in this nice example.
Hmm.
And then we just have a few buttons to go over.
Yeah.
Reset form obviously goes over itself. What's the difference between save to date and submit?
Yeah, we get this a lot. Save to date is basically just kind of hold that state of your application. You know, that happens a lot. Like, oh, I want to add something, but I can't remember this person's email, or I don't remember the supporting grant number, or so. You know, saving to date is kind of like it'll just hold it in that state. Anything you've already filled out will still be there when you come back. And then submit will actually submit it to the review panels or the review boards or you know whatever whoever and whatever needs to review these submissions. It'll end up in their you know respective bucket. But yes, submit will submit it for real. If there's any errors or anything, obviously when you hit submit, it will tell you on this page. And then you know when you save the date, it allows you to come back to the this application and make any adjustments or modifications you need to before fully submitting it.
Excellent. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um, all right, let's follow it up. Let's close this out strong. Let's say I hit submit and I've submitted my application. What
yeah.
what should when should I expect to hear back from TAC? What do I need to do next? What are my next steps after I press this wonderful blue submit button?
You know, Paramount's probably just be a little patient. You know, we definitely get thousands of submissions. You know, we aim for, you know, as quickly as possible. Sometimes there is some communication that needs to happen with the PI. Some clarification usually is what it is. You know, so we don't just flat out reject these applications. You know, we're definitely you know we'll allow you know we want to get people on these systems and get them rocking and rolling. So you know, but generally speaking, we aim for about 2 weeks. You know, don't hold me to that. That's kind of estimate where we're at. Just kind of depends on the request, the volume, and the opportunity. Sometimes certain opportunities need to go through a more rigorous review process. Sometimes the reviews are scheduled. For example, like we brought up that community one earlier, the LSCP. You know, those traditionally were you know, you could apply for those every quarter. So you may be waiting 2 to 3 months before your application gets reviewed. It just, like I said, it just kind of depends. But generally speaking, if there's not something special about the opportunity like that, like an LRAC or LSCP or something like that, I usually say about 2 weeks.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, 2 weeks. Keep an eye on email for further follow-up
right.
questions.
Right. Yeah, because we that often happens. We need a little clarification. We'd rather get that clarification and make a small modification than rejecting it and having to go through this whole process again, you know.
For sure. And as you say, there are thousands of these submissions, and
There
these
are.
are all still reviewed by people.
They are. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, each one of these is hand reviewed by an actual human being.
By an actual human being. Yes, sir.
All
Sometimes
right.
multiple. I just, like again, it kind of depends on the opportunity, but sometimes it's multiple reviews in multiple phases.
Okay. Excellent. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, man, I really appreciate you doing these.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you do have any questions, you can always open an out help desk support ticket
Right.
under the allocations queue, and someone there will reach out to you and help out.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you again, Remy.
You're welcome. Yep. Thanks, Mitchell.